What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome in to CHGO Bulls Pregame. Coming to you live from our studios here in the West Loop, downtown Chicago. I'm Peck. You can follow me on Twitter at Bulls_Peck. Joined by our friend from CHGO Sky, also contributor at PHNX Suns, the one and only Steven Garner, sitting in for Big Dave tonight. What's up, dude? Good to see you, man.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Rocking the sea red. You ready for win number 3 in a row?
Hey, I'm undefeated when I'm on the show.
That's true. Our good luck charm is back, y'all. And filling in for Joseph tonight, we got the one and only Greg Braggs producing on the controls. The man has had a long day already with our CHGO Bears team. How you doing, Braggs? You alive?
I am so tired.
Need a little caffeine boost to get you through the finish line tonight?
I've done 5 hours of Bears podcasting, so let's go some Bulls, baby.
Yeah,
right.
There you go.
Only the Bulls.
I mean, only the one and only. Also, like, if you want to just, curl up on one of those couches while they're playing and take a little power nap, you are more than welcome.
And cry.
It's very much understood, for sure. It's been a long day.
You've had a long, hard day, buddy.
Long day.
We appreciate you for still being here. Sure. All right, Bulls have the Rockets on deck tonight, Steven, a team that they have yet to face thus far this season. A team that gave the Bulls the business in one of their 2 meetings last season. Alperen Sengun kind of picked the Bulls apart. We'll talk about him a little later on. But first, good news and only good news when it comes to the Bulls injury report front. First, Vooch, who has been on the injury report with his comeback from his adductor strain, has been removed from the injury report entirely. Zach LaVine, dealing with the foot inflammation still, now also a sore shoulder, also on the injury report, but active tonight. And not only that, the big story for tonight, Steven, is that Vooch and Zach LaVine, confirmed by Billy Donovan pregame, reinserted into that starting lineup where we all kind of expected they would eventually be.
Yeah. I think, like we talked about 2 weeks ago when I was last on, this team was starting to lose that fizzle that they had offensively, which was really what was pushing them in that stretch without Zach.
Right.
Not having your connector, not having your theoretical point guard in the half court the way you have restructured your offense through Vooch, playing from the elbows and from the block. Not having him had his late lingering effects as you put Drummond into the starting lineup in place of him.
Right.
And we saw things go downhill from there. The offense got extremely muddy in the half court, so it's about time for them to get back to being that team that we've expected them to be, specifically in the starting lineup. Yeah,
and look, the Vooch and Drummond kind of led the way for the Bulls in an ugly win on Monday night, kind of just taking advantage of a small, undermanned Hornets team. Exactly. They both got their work. But I think a lot of Bulls fans, in Vooch's absence, and then even still when he was on a minutes restriction, which, by the way, also Billy confirmed no more minutes restriction for Vooch, that, we saw he still has it version of Andre Drummond in that starting center position. Mm-hmm. But as you noted, there's sort of like two sides to that coin. Like, yes, you see the full force of Drummond crashing the boards on both ends, putting up those 20 and 20 or close to it kind of games. But the way that the half court offense just didn't quite flow as smoothly, and you'll lose some of that ball movement that Vooch has as sort of the fulcrum of that half-court offensive sets.
Correct.
So, I mean, what do you think is in Billy Donovan's best interest looking ahead now, starting with tonight? Because this five-man lineup that is Kobe, Zach, DeMar, Patrick Williams, and Vooch, Patrick Williams also, by the way, on the injury report, but given the green light tonight, this is the starting lineup to kind of put the Bulls in a hole to start the season. Really did not have any sort of offensive cohesion. What they were claiming that they were working on in training camp leading up to this season, none of it seemed to be clicking. Part of that also is that Zach LaVine just came out of the gate looking horrible. Maybe some of that was a foot injury that, didn't go public until a month or so into the season, but that also he just sort of seems to be mentally checked out after the trade news broke. How do you see the Bulls and Billy Donovan in particular trying to circumnavigate that when it seems very feasible that a lot of similar problems that this team already experienced in October and November will pop right back up when the lineup returns to what it used to be?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a very astute question with those two pieces, especially the Zach piece being back in the fold with the starting lineup. And before I speak, to preface it all, that lineup of the original starting five was in 107 minutes that they all spent in games where they were all available, had a net of minus 16.2.
Ooh.
Which is obviously 107 minutes is not a big sample size, but to even be that negative is not. That speaks to a team that needs some type of change.
Right, yeah. And not what you want your starting lineups.
With your 5 best players healthy, and that's not necessarily what you want.
No.
So I think addition by subtraction was the thing that was needed. And naturally, the subtraction was Zach with the injury.
Right.
Enabling Billy to have to shapeshift the way that the offense was facilitated. And naturally, that went to the Vucevic piece that we spoke to a few minutes ago.
Right.
And we've seen the context of the team shift. Kobe's been given more opportunities. Pat's confidence has been wavering, but it's been more highs than lows than there were at the beginning portion of the season. DeMar's been DeMar still. And you're starting to see more of the pieces underneath that be receptive to what's going on as well. So you take him out being LaVine, and then you bring him back.
Right.
Now it's time for Billy to be 10 toes down about his decision with the offensive philosophy switch. So now here's the test to see.
And speaking of Pat, who you just mentioned, who's maybe been given a little bit more of a runway with all of the absences that started, propping up, Zach, Vooch, Caruso missing some games. That maybe, along with the net rating of the starting 5 you just mentioned, is why the Bulls just released their starting lineup for tonight. Patrick Williams is not in it. Caruso starting instead of Pat tonight, alongside Kobe, Zach, DeMar, and Vooch, which I do believe that 5 had a better net rating. And I can't recall immediately what it was, but maybe that is Billy Donovan for any number of reasons saying, let's try and get off to a better start. That might drive some of those, anti-Billy Donovan small ball people in Bulls Nation a little crazy. But you know what? I mean, I'm at least fine with this decision by Billy because it seems like addressing something that he already knows wasn't working well. Like, he took Patrick Williams out of the starting lineup like 6 or 7 games into the season because he looked to be not giving them a whole lot. So maybe we also saw earlier this season Patrick Williams have a string of games where he looked more confident and comfortable in that bench role. So maybe that's something else that Billy's trying to kind of tap into with this decision.
Yeah, and I would love to be in person to ask him that question. Obviously, the GOAT Will is on the task.
Will the GOAT is at the UC tonight. I'm sure they'll ask him about it after the game. Yeah,
for sure. So I'm curious if it's that piece that you just spoke to with Pat, or if it's because of the matchup with the Houston Rockets, who play a little bit smaller, without Dillon Brooks in the rotation. I'm curious if they're matching up that way, or if it's truly because Pat's been more of the Pat they need when he's in a reserve role versus when he's with that starting 5 and kind of working them in from there.
Right, yeah. So, and Pat, to his credit, has always been okay with fluctuating between a starting role and a reserve role, much the same way that Kobe White has done throughout Kobe's tenure on this team. I thought that, we sort of saw the disengaged version of Patrick in their game on Monday night. I mean, it wasn't a super pretty game by any players or by any stretch, but this, the matchup thing could be, I think, an answer there as to why Billy is looking with this against this Rockets team, which, they have a tendency in the past to kind of tear the Bulls apart. They're sort of just middle of the pack from behind the arc so far this season. People think of the Rockets as like a young team that likes to play fast. They were middle of the pack as far as pace of offense last season, and they actually have taken a step or two down from where they were offensive pace-wise last season to this season. So, I mean, is it just a sense of Caruso being out there to sort of maybe mask the defensive deficiencies of now having Zach and DeMar back in that starting lineup?
Yeah, that's kind of getting into my mind now, because me thinking inversely from a Rockets perspective, like you mentioned, they don't play with the most pace. Alperen Sengun is That dude is so good,
dude.
If you were able to watch without knowing that name, you might think he was Jokic at times.
Right? Yeah.
He operates. On
he's a slightly skinnier Jokic, by the way. In some of these sort of near triple double games, he's capable of putting up.
Correct, and he's gotten the Jokic hat tip numerous times earlier this season as well. So thinking for it from that perspective, they run a lot of pick and roll as well, and Fred VanVleet and Sengun are that natural tandem for them to facilitate offense through. You put Caruso, obviously, at the head of the snake at the point of attack.
Right.
On Fred VanVleet, make life tough on him, navigate screens. That takes away the effectiveness of that tandem, which naturally allows for your solid defense to be a little bit more connected at the inception of possessions defensively.
Yeah. Anthony in the comments with an interesting question. Does Billy still stick with a 10-man rotation, or does Dillon Tari or Javon Carter get knocked out of it, especially considering that Billy confirmed tonight that as far as the minutes restrictions, like Zach was already playing 30-plus minutes. Vooch was I think he played 30-some minutes off the bench in those couple of games. But maybe Billy shrinks his lineup a little bit again after getting a full green light from his main rotation guys who he had to start the season with. What if you were Billy? Would you still try and maybe stretch this to a 10-man rotation, or would you shrink it to 9?
I would keep it at 10 because of the main reasoning why we're going about doing things the way that we're doing. Again, me speaking and thinking as Billy. Shouldn't be expecting to have Zach LaVine long term. So you don't want to mess up the rhythm of the pieces that you do have and plan to potentially keep past the trade deadline this season by trying to, facilitate to other pieces. I think there's a way for all of those pieces that were in the rotation to still get some sort of minutes underneath Zach. You just have to obviously teeter to it the right way.
Right.
That goes again to the context changing that I mentioned.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and get to more thoughts on tonight's game. Also, we heard some interesting thoughts from Kobe White on his chemistry and relationship with Zach LaVine. Now that we're going to see Zach and Kobe sharing the floor some more, Zach coming back into that starting lineup and sort of how this Bulls offense operates now that they are both out there. Plus, we'll, of course, take a look at the Houston Rockets and what they've been up to this season. While we're doing that, you know what to do, Bulls Nation. Hit that thumbs up if you're watching along with us on YouTube. Thank you for joining us, by the way. Shout out to Dredge. Shout out to Jamira's in the comments who said, shout out to CHGO Bulls fan. Let's go Bulls. Meanwhile, Drewish is feeling a little on the downer side, and I don't fault you. It's tough being a Chicago sports fan right now, between the Bears fans hoping for maybe a change of scenery in the head coaching chair that they didn't get today. Connor Bedard out 6 to 8 weeks for the Blackhawks. He's going to miss All-Star Weekend, which such a bummer for such a bright light in Chicago sports now. But hey, Bulls got 2 wins in their pocket, going for 3 tonight. So we're here to hang out.
And the Cubs finally made a move in free agency.
Finally! I was getting worried about my buddy Cody on that CHGO Cubs beat, man. He was getting dark times. Finally some forward steps. Speaking of forward steps, you can make a forward step or two, put money in your pocket by making some bets at Circus Sportsbook. Illinois tonight. They have, of course, the tight money line splits and that low hold model. They always strive to have those starting odds at -110, whether you're betting over-unders on total points scored for tonight's game. Maybe you're looking at the spread of tonight's game. They always strive to have those odds starting out at -110, not 115 or 120 like a lot of the other sports bettors do. Circa also keeps as little money as possible on those large market bets like NBA futures, for example. If you have an inkling on who's going all the way, who's going to hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy in 5 or 6 months, the best odds and the best value as far as places to do that is Circa, who also have, of course, their unparalleled customer service. They have real people behind that Circa Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike other sports bettors who use those dreaded chatbots. Is there anything you hate more than chatbots, Steven?
Yes, it's the bots in the shoe industry.
Oh.
Those are the absolute worst.
You talking about like shoe apps?
Yeah, the ones that take the shoes before people even get a chance to have access to them. It's changed the game, and it's permanently removed me from it, actually.
Speaking of which, very nice shoe game tonight, sir.
Appreciate
I
you.
like those. Is that gray suede on those Jordan ones?
Gray suede, yeah.
Dude.
Real comfortable.
I mean, we both rocking the ones tonight.
Yes, sir.
Have
yes,
to.
Sir. I love you, too.
Download the Circus Sports Illinois app at circusports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Be on the lookout also for Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. If you or someone you know may have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Text GAMB to 833-234 or visit areoureallywinning.com. CHGOBullsPregame.com. Steven, I have a question for you.
What's up?
Are you ready for the question?
Maybe.
Steven, what time is it?
Game time.
He was ready for it. He was ready for it, Bulls fan. Were you ready too, Braggs, if I threw it your way?
First time you did that to me, no, I wasn't. But that's only because you scare the shit out of me.
I know that you've had a long day. I didn't want to throw a wild card
If you
in
had
your
asked me, I
direction.
probably would have started crying.
Braggs is just holding on by a thread, you guys.
Post game should be interesting.
That man needs a Snickers right now.
Dude, he needs a Snickers. He needs a really comfy pillow. That's what he needs. You can find the Game Time app wherever you download your apps, and you can find incredible deals on tickets. Whatever you're looking for tickets for, sporting events, concerts, theater, whatever it is, you shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater in events near you. They have, as Big Dave would say, killer last-minute deals. All-in pricing, views from your seat, which is so crucial, and the best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They have last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, even for events that have already started. You can be like, you know what, last-second decision, impulse decision, I want to get tickets to this. You'll find incredible deals on knocked-down prices on events that very day and even that night. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code, you guessed it, CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account with redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed, because Braggs, what time is it?
Game time!
Who?
I knew I could count on you, buddy. You were there. You were ready for it.
By the way, being able to preview your seat before you purchase is some of the clutches purchasing of online anything that you can possibly have. That feature is so dope.
It really is. It's incredible. What's the last concert you went to?
That's a great question. The last concert I went to probably was to see Earth Gang.
Who?
Earth Gang. Yeah,
I'm not hip.
I'll put you on. I got you.
Send me a link.
I got you. Send me their
Spotify channel.
I got you. I most definitely got you.
Right on. Was it here in Chicago or somewhere?
Yeah, it was here at House of Blues, I believe.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Great venue. Mm-hmm. Classic. I haven't been to House of Blues in forever. It's a good spot. All right, moving right along into tonight's preview of Bulls Rockets. Shout out to Luke, who threw us a super chat in the comments, who said, let's go Braggs, Meatball Island. Bulls should win the next 11 games. Okay. I love the positivity. We talked recently, I think it was pregame on Monday night, about how the Bulls have kind of a soft schedule in January. A lot of road games, but as far as strength of schedule, you're not playing a lot of powerhouses this month. So, maybe they can do a little climbing in those play-in standings. Yay. Also, shout out to Io Laro, who threw us a super chat saying, Matt sucks. Tried to fry my last super chat. Ended up getting destroyed by Big David the GOAT. Matt, very disappointed. Let's go Bulls. You'll have to refresh my memory. I don't remember what you're talking about. If I fried your super chat, it probably, because based on the way I interpreted it, was something I thought was dumb/funny. But please, by all means, feel free to correct me. Thank you for joining us anyway, even though I suck. All right, so shifting gears. This came from a write-up yesterday, I believe, from Casey Johnson over at NBC Chicago about Coby White and his feelings on Zach LaVine coming back into action, because Coby White had himself a hell of a December, got super hot from behind the three-point line for a while, but also just took on a bigger part of the responsibility as far as leading this offense, Steven. And he was talking about playing with Zach and what that means recently, if you want to throw that quote up there, Mr. Braggs, saying about his chemistry with Zach. We don't have egos where it's like, I want the ball. We want to win. Whoever has it going, it is what it is. He's not selfish enough to come out and say, hey, give me the ball. He's a winner. He's going to do what's best for the team. And for me, it's the same. So, I mean, what do you make of, Steven, this sort of interesting predicament that Billy Donovan and his guys find themselves in, which is that Zach, we've seen since coming back and playing off the bench in these couple of games, kind of letting the game come to him a little bit, playing off the ball more. Kobe White involved in a lot more pick and roll in the sense of a traditional point guard, whereas that's something that Zach LaVine, when he was in the starting lineup to begin the season and for many years now, was doing a lot of that. Primary ball handling, a lot of pick and roll execution. Now that they are both back into this starting lineup, how do you anticipate that, shifting, or do you think it's in the team's best interest, Zach's best interest, whether it's staying here or finding a trade for him, to keep things as they were while he was out, which is like, hey, let's let Kobe do most of that ball handling. DeMar will get some of those, half-court possessions, of course, as well. But, find your windows to have Zach off the ball a bit more.
Ideally, like I mentioned, this will be, I think, the third time now. With the context changing without Zach, you can't have it revert back to what it was because we've seen the results that garners, which is not what you need if you're trying to compete and win games. And, again, like I mentioned in the last segment as well, you don't want to change things because you're also not expecting Zach to be here long term.
Right.
So you want to keep things as they are, allow for him to fit in, get in where he fits in that respect. He's obviously going to get his touches. But my thinking with the context of the Bulls offense has been in, especially with Kobe having the ball in his hands more, teams have started to guard him differently. If you're putting Zach LaVine in a lot of those positions that Ayo Dosunmu was in, that Patrick Williams was in,
right,
that's going to make the defense react a lot differently if it's one of those two. So that attention you might have wanted to give to Kobe and help 2 steps closer to the help line where Kobe has the ball, if that's Zach LaVine that you're gapping off of, there's going to be consequences to pay, whether that be him catching and shooting or catching and driving.
Right.
So that's putting the defense in different types of predicaments over the course of a game. And if the Bulls are continuing to manipulate space around all of that, now you're cooking with something. And that's all without Zach having the ball directly in his hands to start plays. That's secondarily. Now if you put it in his hands with the way Kobe's been playing, you're starting to see the puzzle pieces fit together a lot more astutely than it did priorly. And that's all because of the context being better.
Right. Meanwhile, Matty Legend in the comments with an interesting additional wrinkle to this Bulls half-court offense, dealing with the return of Zach, Kobe blossoming. Matty Legend saying, trying to wrap my head around those DeMar ball-hogging possessions last game. He also needs to show he can be a Superman closer. He is also in a contract year and could be traded. I mean, I know you said you kind of caught the tail end of that Bulls-Hornets game on Monday, Steven. Like, there were some pretty atrocious DeMar ISO possessions down the stretch of that game that unfortunately led the Bulls to needing overtime to pull out that win. It wasn't pretty. We also, of course, know that we've seen time and again, hero ball DeMar, ISO ball DeMar, whatever you want to call it, come up with some very needed clutch buckets for the Bulls in close games. How do you think it is in their best interests to operate and balance letting DeMar be that player that he is and trying to find better looks than that down the stretch? Because it almost cost him that game against a very beatable opponent on Monday.
Yeah, for sure. I think they have to have more ball movement in the closing periods in the fourth quarter specifically. And obviously you're not running entire sets when you get to clutch time play, the last 5 minutes in games being closer than 5. But you have to have some sort of movement player-wise where it's not everybody literally standing and watching DeMar dribble the ball for 18 seconds. Right. Have some type of players running across the court, exchanging positions, maybe a screen or two involved, just to keep the defense honest so that they can't completely load up on DeMar. Now, you have to live with these moments with DeMar because he's of the ilk of players where he's shown that he can do this, and he's shown that he can do it when you need it most. So you can't get those moments where he executes without giving him the space to operate and potentially fail at times. You're not gonna be successful 100% of the time. So that's just kind of part of the process with that. But they can be better with how they're manipulating things around that, to where it doesn't look as stale and stagnant as it did against the Hornets. Right.
All right, well, so with our remaining time, let's shift gears and take a look at this Rockets team, who the Bulls have yet to face this season. 18-17, currently 8th place in the West, 5-5 in their last 10. This is, staring down the barrel of a team that I'm sure Jerry strives to be, which is perfectly mediocre, but just a little bit above mediocre. They currently have the 21st ranked offense in the NBA, offensive rating of 113.9. They have been getting it done on the defensive end. 4th best defensive rating of 111.6, positive 2.3 overall net rating, good for 11th in the NBA coming into tonight's action. And, obviously, speaking to that defense, Steven, big piece of that, and a guy who's identified around the league as being defense first, and maybe also a little bit of a clownish character in the way that he, carries himself. Dillon Brooks, knock certain things about him if you want to, but he makes an impact on the defensive end. He, along with Tari Eason, will be out for the Rockets tonight. So maybe some opportunities for the Bulls offense that has been struggling to get some things going.
Yeah. That piece with them operating without Dillon Brooks has changed a lot of things for them. Their defense is still held up like we showed when you were speaking about them. But I think also what plays to their defense is the fact that they have a floor general that is one of the best in terms of assist-to-turnover ratio on consistency, Fred VanVleet. And because at the head of your snake, the person that's making the most decisions outside of Sengun is Fred VanVleet, and neither one of them turn the ball over much, they can typically keep their defense set for the most part, which means that's going to take away that diet of the Bulls trying to get out and run potentially, which is something that was also a big part of everything they were doing when they flipped the script this season.
One of the Bulls' strengths is, creating those turnovers and getting points off those turnovers. But, to your point, Rockets are just inside the top 10 in the NBA and limiting their turnover percentage. What do you make of VanVleet's arrival and trying to, feel out how he's fit into this Rockets team so far? Because it's sort of like an interesting dynamic duo that they're trying to develop here between VanVleet and Sengun, who are their two leading scorers so far this season. Yeah,
I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is all of the shenanigans, let's just call them that.
I love the word shenanigans.
In the last couple of seasons. So you think about those things and you think about how this team has looked this season. It's been a stark positive contrast. They got some adults in the room, from head coaching change with Ime Udoka.
Yep.
You could question the terms in which he was brought in on, which I do too ethically. But
seemed like they glossed over a thing or two while hiring him.
Maybe just a little
but
bit.
But it's hard to ignore the very rapid progress and, accomplishments he made in his short stint in Boston.
Correct. So you have that context with him being brought into the mix, add Fred VanVleet to that mix, add one of the underrated role players at this point in his career, and Jeff Green, another adult that you're bringing into the room. And now you're starting to see things change in terms of how this team is looking. Jalen Green, who was one of the people involved in a lot of those shenanigans, has been a lot more tamed, and he's been having a fairly solid season.
Yeah.
In terms of changing and kind of making his trajectory get back to where they were hoping it would be when they drafted him.
Yeah, and he's sort of like the supporting, guy of their big three, if you want to call it a big three in Houston that they have. I think, he is the one behind Sengun and VanVleet. I think he's averaging about 16 or 17 points a game this season. So, this Rockets team, their offense may not have quite figured out yet this season, but they have a lot of capable guys over there.
Yeah, for sure. And they're in the thick of things in the Western Conference as well, which is, I can promise you, a lot of people didn't expect that, given the things that we talked about that preceded this team.
Right, and they did not have a great start out of the gate. And part of that was that they, all season long, and still are, a team that's struggling on the road.
Yeah.
They are 3-11 on the road this season, are the Houston Rockets, compared to their obviously much more impressive winning record at home to get to that 18-17 near 500 record that they have. So, I mean, good news yet again for the Bulls, who are healthy, facing a banged-up Rockets team, missing a couple of their key pieces, and a Rockets team that hasn't figured out how to win on the road yet this season. So, whether it's Caruso out there or somebody else whose job it is to primarily try to contain the poking and prodding offense of whether it's VanVleet or Sengun on various possessions, if you could do that, even if you're not going to generate a lot of points off turnovers tonight, just play solid defense and limit your own turnovers, something that the Bulls have had a little bit of an issue with recently. They've been elite all season long, but they've dropped from first to, I think, third or fourth now as far as turnover possession. Protect the ball, play solid defense, and obviously see what this Zach and Vooch back in the starting lineup looks like. Hopefully not the crap we saw in October and November, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the game within the game for this matchup with the Rockets. It's the turnover battle. Who can force more turnovers, because obviously that's a strong suit of both teams. And just seeing put the contrast of a player that forces a lot of turnovers in Caruso, one of the most chaotic defenders. He's teetering on the point of in history at this point with the consistency he's done in that versus somebody who's historically been extremely good taking care of it. You're starting to see kind of the game within the game that's coming in, and it's going to be fun to check that.
Yeah. I think it was NBA University's Twitter account that had some new defensive stat metric that was about specifically getting breakups in passing lanes. And surprise, Caruso was number 2 on that list across the entire NBA. All right, we are at 7:05 Central Time. That means tip-off is just moments away, so we will wrap things up. Shout out to DeBears1920 in the comments, who also I saw was tuning into y'all's coverage with CHGO Bears Today Brags, who said, shout out to the Bulls fans who watched Bulls Hornets the other night instead of the college football championship. Not me, but shout out to those of y'all, man. Tell you what, that's why we have multiple TVs here at CHGO Studios. It's also why I have multiple TVs in my own living room. So when I got to watch a Bulls-Hornets game, I can also catch a college football playoff game. We will be right back here, same spots for CHGO Bulls post-game. Following Bulls Rockets, we will hear from our guy, Will the Goat Gottlieb, from the UC during postgame. Make sure you're following along with him on Twitter for his in-game updates and reporting. Will_Gottlieb is his handle. We are CHGO_Bulls. I'm Bulls_Peck. Shout out to our guy Braggs. Long day, hanging in. You going to make it to postgame, buddy?
We'll see.
And, of course, thanks to our guy Stephen Garner of CHGO Sky and PHNX Suns. Sitting in for Big Dave tonight. Stay true. S.3 is the Twitter handle for this man. It is a great follow if you aren't following already. We'll see y'all for postgame. Hit the thumb on your way out. Let's go Bulls.
See red.
3 wins.
We all silly like the mayor.